In Auckland for performances at the Audio Foundation and other performances in Wellington is the Spatial Forces duo from the US. Clarinetist Jessica Lindsay and Christy Banks have been playing and teaching as the Spatial duo for quite a long time now, since 2008. They specialise in presenting works by living American composers for clarinet solo, clarinet duo, and one or more clarinets with electronics. While here, they're teaming up with former classmate flutist Hannah Darrick in Wellington and clarinetist Donald Nichols in Auckland. Before they join us from Auckland, we're going to hear part of a piece they commissioned from American composer Richard Bell Castro called On the Shapes of Stories, the text of which comes from Kurt Vonnegut.
We call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it.
We've been listening to a piece called On the Shapes of Stories, going to be performed by Jessica Lindsay and Christy Banks with a bit of help from Kurt Vonnegut. How are you both?
We're doing well. Happy to be here.
How nice to have you in the country. So tell me about this piece and why you're interested in Kurt Vonnegut.
Well, this is by a friend of mine who lives in the Philadelphia area, and we were looking at the possibility of presenting at a convention in Indianapolis, and that is where Vonnegut spent a good deal of time. So we thought, hey, maybe we can kind of work in this Vonnegut thing, and I mentioned it to Ricky, and he said that he was really intrigued by this kind of lecture that Kurt Vonnegut had done based on what he wanted to do for his master's thesis, and it got rejected as being too simplistic, but it was this lecture about three very normal shapes of normal stories. One is man in hole. Things, are going fine for a guy, falls in a hole, he gets himself back out of it. That's one of them. Another one is boy meets girl, and then the third one, which is he veils it a little bit, but it's the Cinderella story. And so he uses the shapes of these as far as the dramatic shapes of these stories. And then Ricky, the composer, takes Kurt Vonnegut's speech and uses the words and the melody of his speech, the actual pitches, to create the melody for us. So in each shape, we kind of sneak in playing along with Kurt Vonnegut's voice. And then Ricky develops a movement based on the shape that Vonnegut's describing for each of the three shapes.
And then the screen goes blank and you take over.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
We interact with each other and also with an electronic track that Ricky prepared. And it's quite fun. We develop the themes based on the speech patterns of Kurt Vonnegut, as Christy sort of explained, and that's where the real excitement happens. The music, we really take over and go from there.
How does the audience react?
Oh, they love it. Kurt Vonnegut, was
a big name. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and he's very, very funny. And there are a few places where, depending on what kind of venue we're in, sometimes the audience feels like they're not supposed to make noise or not supposed to laugh, and then they find that they can't help it because he's just quite a hilarious guy.
Is that what you like? Is that why you do things like this? You want the audience to react, you get some sort of buy-in rather than sitting there respectfully.
Of course. That's part of our name, actually. Spatial Forces, spelled Spatial, is the idea of not just that we're special forces, like special agents or anything, but that we also involve the space, which involves the audience. So that hopefully, two performances of essentially the same music would sound very different or be a very different experience for the audience.
So when you're doing your first performance here tomorrow at Auckland University, it's a workshop performance. What exactly will it involve?
Well, we're always excited, as Christy said, to interact with the audience. So we'll be talking a little bit about each piece that we play. And what's exciting, I think, about the electroacoustic music that we play is that we use a number of different varieties. So the piece that we just heard is with fixed media, so the tape doesn't change at all. That's always just the same. We have another piece that has real-time processing, a piece by John Drumheller called The View from Dead Horse Point. And so he uses a computer program called Super Collider, and he programs that to change and morph our sounds as we're playing. So that piece is absolutely different every time we perform it versus something with fixed media. We have the same interactions most of the time with the track.
You went to school in Boulder, Colorado, or to university with one Hannah Derrick.
I sure did. It was wonderful to connect with Hannah there, and she's such a fabulous musician, and we collaborated on campus there, and she just spoke so highly of her beautiful country and was part of my interest in visiting and performing down here.
What about your colleague, clarinetist Donald Nichols in Auckland? How did you meet him?
This is Christy here. I met him in the mid-90s in Oklahoma, where he was studying. I went to a clarinet convention, or as we like to say, clarinerd convention. And this very striking, tall, red-haired guy got up and played something like I'd never heard before. I just was blown away by the music and his performance. And then we've just run into each other at other clarinerd conventions. And then, of course, Facebook and that kind of thing happens, and you're able to connect with people all over the world. So that's really how we started to become friends and just trading musical ideas, and then it kind of morphed into let's do this project together.
So your Audio Foundation concert coming up at the, is it Monday? No, Sunday. Sunday. Will that be quite different to what you're doing in your workshop tomorrow?
Most of the music will be the same, but I think as we present it, there may be less speaking. We'll move between pieces a little bit differently, but the program will be very similar. I think it will be, again, just as we interact with different spaces and different venues, the music feels different to us, and I think to our audience as well. So the music will be the same, but hopefully the spatialness will be different.
So this is really what you love. You love going to different spaces so that you can see what you can do with it.
Sure, and different audiences. I think when we're at the university, we're going to be dealing with people who are studying music or studying composition. And, on Saturday morning when we're going to work with young children, we're, in some cases probably teaching them what a clarinet or a bass clarinet is, but also allowing them to take part in the interactive electronic piece, which will turn it into a completely different piece of music. And so I think that's the thing, music is, live music is a conversation, or should be an experience with the audience. And so I think the audience is the thing that makes it different each time.
Well, enjoy yourselves while you're here. It's been great having you on the show, and we're going to play a little bit more of the piece that Ricky Belcastro wrote for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jessica Lindsay and Christy Banks, and here's a bit more of the Kurt Vonnegut work.
Anyway, there's a party at the palace that night. She can't go. She has to help everybody else get ready. She has to stay home. Now, does she sink lower? No. She's a staunch little girl, and she has had the maximum whack from fate, which is the loss of her mother. She can't go any lower than that. Okay, so the fairy godmother comes. Gives her shoes, gives her stocking, gives her mascara. Gives her means of transportation, goes to the party, dances with the prince, has a swell time. Goes to the party, dances with the prince.
Off to the party with Jessica Lindsay, Christy Banks, and a bit of help from Kurt Vonnegut. They're performing at the Audio Foundation in Auckland, and also New Zealand School of Music have a workshop performance on the 16th next week, where Hannah Derrick will join them.